Hi, my name is Peter Mo, and I'm from Tourism Ireland's Nordic office in Copenhagen. Today we will be talking about something synonymous with Ireland, that I believe almost everyone tries when visiting the island. We will, of course, be talking about Ireland's most famous drink, Guinness. We have the perfect person with us here today to enlighten us on this. Colm O'Connor, beer specialist at the Guinness Storehouse. Hi, Colm. Can you tell me a bit about the history of Guinness and St. James Gate?
Hi, Peter. Yeah, delighted to be here with you today. Absolutely. For me, I think Guinness is not just a great beer; it's a fantastic success story. It's a story that we love telling to our visitors here at the storehouse. And yeah, it all started 263 years ago in
Okay.
1759. It was all started by one man, Arthur Guinness, very ambitious brewer, businessman who started here. Very kind of humble origins, really. He didn't buy it outright. The brewery itself had been here for at least 80 years before Arthur arrived here in this part of
Okay.
Dublin. And he actually signed a lease, believe it or not, between himself and the owner of the brewery, a gentleman called Mark Rainsford. Now, it wasn't any ordinary lease. He actually signed it for 9,000 years, believe it or not, which obviously is a solid show of commitment by one man. And I think what's nice about the experience here, that's actually the first thing that you see. It's actually the first kind of stepping stone into the experience at the Guinness Storehouse. So we kind of start, right at year zero, if you like, which for us is 1759. So essentially, what Arthur would have been signing up to would have been a brew house, a residential home, and also 4 acres of land. So, as I said, kind of humble beginnings, and over the 250 plus years that we've been here, we've expanded up to 50 acres right here on the St. James's Gate site. So the storehouse is obviously one part of that huge site here in the southwest of Dublin, kind of in the southwest inner city of Dublin, called the Liberties.
Fair enough. 9,000 years, that's an impressive lease.
Yeah, it is indeed. It is indeed. It's all part of the story, Like he wasn't here for 9,000 years, obviously,
Obviously.
but he was here for nigh on 44 years afterwards, and he passed away in 1803, and he essentially left the brewery with his family, and he actually selected one of his sons, Arthur Guinness II. He kind of deemed him to be the most capable in carrying on the brewery and carrying on the business. And, that was quite a significant move because it actually started a brewing tradition that remained within the Guinness family for a total of 6 generations. And that connection that started in 1759 didn't actually end until the early 1990s, believe it or not. So there is a very tangible connection between the family and the brewery, and in turn with the brewery and the city of Dublin as well. And you can't go very far around the city without seeing some sort of a connection, some sort of touchstone between the family, the brewery, and the city.
Fair enough. Just for anyone who hasn't tried one yet, I'm gonna say yet. But what's the flavor of Guinness, and what's it made of?
Guinness is a dark beer. It's a porter or a stout. Okay, porters and stouts, essentially, the same beer. They differentiate themselves from lagers, from pilsners, from Indian pale ales, from any other style of beer, due to the use of roasted barley. We actually brew with unmalted barley that's actually roasted here on site, literally 4 minutes walk from where I'm actually sitting here in the Guinness Storehouse. We actually roast our barley, and obviously that does two things to Guinness. It gives it that synonymous dark color, but more importantly, in my view, gives it that fantastic coffee or kind of dark chocolate like flavor as well, which really is the kind of cornerstone of all porters and stouts. So we are very much synonymous with that particular style of beer. So when we take our visitors through the experience, after they've seen the lease, we actually explain the ingredients, and we explain not only what they are. We also kind of go into detail into what we do with those ingredients, how Guinness is brewed on the brewing floor. And then we kind of, I suppose, finish that kind of drink story, if you like, drink related story, when we explain why we have those ingredients. In other words, like what those ingredients actually give to the flavors in the beer. So essentially, this I kind of call them the holy trinity of flavors, really, in our particular beers. I think Guinness itself has three kind of core flavors. The first one would be a sweetness, kind of like
Yeah.
toffee like or caramel like sweetness,
Hmm.
which we get from the malted barley. And then you also get the coffee and the chocolate from the roasted barley. And then you kind
Yeah.
of end then with that kind of light kind of bitterness at the back of the tongue, which obviously comes from the hops. So essentially, three core ingredients:
Right.
malt, roast, hops, three core flavors: sweetness, chocolate or coffee, and bitterness.
And turns out to be an absolutely amazing drink.
Yeah, well, I think that I think the beauty of Guinness is, in my view, is that it just has that kind of harmonious interplay between these three core elements. So Guinness is a very well balanced beer, so kind of nothing is left in the shade. You get equal, I suppose, billing, if you like, for those three core ingredients and those three core flavors. And in my view, I think it is the best beer in the world, simply because you have that perfect balance between those three flavors.
And that I have to say is no humble view because you are, of course, a beer specialist. So, what does that job entail at Guinness?
Yeah, well, I'm one of a team of beer specialists here at the Guinness Storehouse, and obviously it's very much beer related. A lot of my job is presenting on our fantastic beers. So again, kind of placing each particular beer in its historical context, explaining a little bit about the brewing process, about the flavors, and also as well about how to get to those flavors as well. We teach all of our visitors, a very useful technique in kind of getting those flavors into sharp focus. So a lot of my job is talking about beer, whether it's presentations in our premium experience, which is called the connoisseur experience, where we have a VIP bar. We can only sit 16
Right.
people inside this bar. It's a 1.5 hour session. We go through a number of beers, and it's a joy for me because I love talking about beer. I love maybe bringing something new to people's experience here. So and it's always the element of surprise as well, because you do get a sizable amount of people who don't know much about beer, don't know much about Guinness, but hopefully their eyes will be opened to our brewing heritage, to all of those firsts, all of those innovations that our brewery have basically come across over the last 263 years, and also as well, the beers kind of speak for themselves. So we have a saying here at the Guinness Storehouse. We don't necessarily give people what they want. We give people what they don't expect. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's kind of like the element of surprise. And it's great to hear people, when they finish their tour here, they say, "Oh wow, Colm, that really wasn't what I expected." And I tend to ask, "Well, what did you expect?" I'm not really sure. Like a gallery or museum, maybe. I'm not really sure, but that's kind of the joy of the job. It's very rewarding when you kind of, I suppose, tell something new to somebody is always a nice thing.
Yeah, of course. So, what should people then expect when they come? Like, what can they expect when they visit? What can they experience at the Guinness Storehouse, other than the VIP tour if they try that?
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. Well, again, there are other experiences, as I said, premium experiences that you can book online. We have our connoisseur experience. We have the Guinness Academy. The Academy essentially is where we teach you how to pour your very own pint of Guinness. And trust me, Peter, nothing tastes as satisfying as drinking a pint that you've already, poured for yourself.
All right.
One of the sort of newer experiences that we have here is called Stouty. And Stouty essentially is where we take a picture of your face, we send it to a printer, and we actually print the image of your beautiful face onto the head of an equally beautiful pint of Guinness. And that's the Stouty experience. And yeah, it's quite clever. It's essentially an inkjet printer that we've developed with one of our partners. And obviously, instead of ink being printed on the head of a pint of Guinness, it's actually very fine malted barley extract, which of course is a constituent part of the beer itself. But yeah, the resolution is just amazing. It just has to be seen to be believed. So that's Stouty. But essentially, for a regular kind of self-guided tour, Peter. First, we'll show you the lease. We'll give you, a personal orientation, introduction, and kind of give you a general heads up as to what to expect. The first couple of floors of the 7 floors here in the Guinness Storehouse are very much focused on the beer, its provenance, those obviously core raw materials that we use within the pint of Guinness. We then explain how we put those all together in terms of the brewing process, talk a little bit about the social dimension of working here with particular focus on
All
the
right.
barrel makers, which would be the coopers, for example. Also our transport section, highlighting our own fleet of ships that we had. We had our own barges. We actually had our own internal railway system, believe it or not, for
What?
100
Really?
years. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we had a 13-kilometer internal railway system which actually connected both sides of the brewery, because even up to today our brewery is actually divided by a main street just called James's Street, and it's quite an expansive site. So yeah, we did have to have our own rail system to get from one end of the enormous site to the other end. So we kind of celebrate that 100 years of having our own railway system. Then we kind of connect back to the beer itself in our tasting rooms, where we explain the ingredients, but we explain their connection to the flavors in quite a novel way, quite a useful way, whereby we connect your sense of smell to your sense of taste. Not wishing to give too many spoilers away, but it's something that has to be kind of experienced for you to really fully understand how we actually do that. So essentially, we give you all the tools, all the information, so that by the time you do get up to the Gravity Bar up on the 7th floor, you're enjoying the city views of Dublin. You'll understand where those flavors are coming from, and really, really appreciate why Guinness is the best beer in the world. Why we have that perfect balance of these ingredients and of these flavors.
That sounds absolutely lovely.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's great. It's a nice way to finish it up at the top of the Gravity Bar. But it, before you get to the Gravity Bar, we also take you by the hand through our advertising floor. I mean, we got involved in advertising way back in 1929, and Guinness ads are memorable to for the want of a better word. They are the type of ad that if you do see them, you don't forget them. Okay. I ask people, if you've seen this particular ad, and they don't remember, and I say, well, if you don't remember, you probably didn't see it, because we've always employed the best advertising agencies, ones that have very interesting ways in connecting ideas and concepts to our beer.
Hmm.
For example, one of our most celebrated television commercials, which was launched here in Ireland and the UK in 1999, was the Surfer ad. And the Surfer ad was all shot in black and white, but it essentially tells the story of an aging surfer. And he's been waiting all his life for the perfect wave. And what happens one day? The perfect wave arrives, and he rides the surf, and it's all very much a visceral experience. And he has the best day of his life. It's what he wanted, all his life, and it's the best experience ever. And his friends are there to greet him on the beach, and it's fantastic, and it really sticks in your mind. But of course, you're kind of scratching your head then and thinking, well, what's actually the connection with Guinness? And the connection is that when you're drinking Guinness Draft Stout, you do have to wait for all of those bubbles to settle at the top, of the beer. And it's very, very important that you do so. So those bubbles go up to the top, they form that thick head. Now you have to wait 119.5 seconds for those bubbles
Very
to
specific.
surge and settle. Oh, we're very forensic. We're very, very specific here at St. James's Gate. So essentially, the connection is, one guy has got to wait a lifetime. That could be 70 years for the perfect wave. Is it his best day of his life? Absolutely. Us Guinness drinkers have to wait 119.5 seconds for the pint to settle, which can seem like a lifetime in fairness. But whether it's a lifetime, whether it's 119.5 seconds, good things come to those who wait. Your patience is always rewarded, and that's just very, very important to know that, because Guinness Draft Stout, which is obviously is our number one seller in this part of the world, is a nitrogenated beer. And we were the first brewery in the world to actually dream this up, to celebrate our bicentenary actually in 1959. So by virtue of the fact that it is a mix, the liquid itself is a mix of 25% carbon dioxide as opposed to
Mhm.
100% carbon dioxide, which you would get in a regular beer. Then the other 75% then essentially is nitrogen. That nitrogen under high pressure produces these bubbles when they're knocked out of solution at very, very high pressure, about 30 million of them in actual fact. Very small, very delicate, nice and cute and adorable. They make their way up to the top. They form that thick seal. And, this gives Guinness Draft Stout that kind of silky mouthfeel, that slow, kind of very moderate, transfer of flavors as well. So, it's very important that we kind of explain this so that when people do have their pint up in the gravity bar, they'll appreciate, the effort, all of that manpower, all of that innovation that basically came to a head, if you'll pardon the pun, in what's actually in your glass. So it's a story that we love telling. If we were to stand still, if there was no innovation, if there was no nitrogenated beer, we wouldn't be brewing now, Peter. We wouldn't. We would have probably fallen by the
Yeah,
wayside, like so many have done over the intervening years.
fair enough. I mean, makes a lot of sense though that you go through all of these experiences in the storehouse and then you finally reach the top and you get up there and you can just enjoy Guinness with the knowledge of how it's made, how everything is done, and all the history behind it. Kind of a good way to top it off. Again, as you said, yeah, I like it.
Absolutely. I suppose it's not only a logical conclusion, but it's probably the most pleasurable conclusion you can come to in your visit at the storehouse here.
Yeah, also kind of symbolic conclusion as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we were very careful about choosing the name Gravity Bar as well. It is kind of two meanings that you can kind of attach to its title. Gravity meaning that it's kind of gravity defying, because the old building, which the storehouse was the old fermentation plant, that was only 5 stories. But when we opened up in the year 2000, what we did was we actually put stilts on the old roof and then built the gravity bar on top of the old roof of the fermentation plant. So literally when you're looking out onto the city, for a lot of the view, it doesn't seem to appear that there's anything below you. So it does seem to be gravity defying. And also, as well, on the other
All
hand,
right.
gravity is also a specific measurement for the density of liquid, which is obviously a term that's used in the production of alcohol and does point to the alcohol percentage in a particular beer. So it's a little bit of a double meaning on that. But yeah, we love it. And in actual fact, so popular the gravity bar has been over the last 20 odd years that we actually built another one. We constructed one which opened in February 2020, in
Okay.
actual fact, which looks out on the west side of the city as well. So, yeah, if you walk around in a figure of eight, you can literally get 360-degree, unparalleled views of our beautiful capital city here.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean,
Mm.
that's really lovely that you just get this panoramic view after, well, enjoying what is well a bit synonymous with Ireland, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is very much a success story. I mean, it's kind of like the Coca-Cola of beer. To be honest with you, it's available in virtually every corner of the world. I mean, I suppose in Western Europe and then in North America, our number one seller would be Guinness Draft Stout, which is obviously the creamy Guinness
Hmm.
that probably most of our visitors associate with the name. But then on the other hand, in markets that you may not think of every day, such as the Caribbean, Africa, Southeast Asia, we have a variant called Foreign Extra Stout. And that's a huge seller for us. It's the number one dark beer in many of these markets. And again, that kind of, I suppose, helps with, or at least helped with the expansion of Guinness from the 19th century onwards. And I would say it is, you know, important to understand that it's not just the creamy Guinness being the reason why we're famous right the way across the world. Equally, it's this stronger variant called Guinness Foreign Extra Stout, which is really kind of proven to be, a huge seller in some of the other markets that we're not normally conscious of.
Fair enough. But then going back to like Guinness, once you're up there at the top of the gravity bar and you're looking out over Dublin, like
Hmm.
where else should a Guinness fan visit when in Dublin? Are there any hidden gems that you can recommend?
Oh, there are many, many hidden gems. Yeah, absolutely. And in actual fact, a lot of historical sites in Dublin City are actually directly connected with the Guinness name.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, from the days of Arthur Guinness, the Guinness family were, very much involved with philanthropy in terms of donating their money and time. St. Patrick's Cathedral, which is actually within walking distance. You can actually see it from the gravity bar. That was actually renovated using the money, using the donation by Benjamin Lee
Oh.
Guinness in the early 1860s. He actually donated the modern day equivalent of 8 million euros of his own personal fortune to restore the roof of St. Patrick's Cathedral, which was in a pretty poor condition by the time the mid 19th century came along. Also, the Ivy Market as well, which was Dublin's first indoor market. That's within walking distance of the Guinness Storehouse. And that's actually set to be reopened very, very soon by the Guinness family, believe it or not, who are still alive and kicking. They don't directly have control of the brewery per se, but they still are very active brand ambassadors, very much involved with the Guinness name, with the Ivy name, both here and
Hmm.
abroad. So it's nice to still have that connection, all those years later.
Of course, definitely. So,
Also, also Peter, St. Stephen's Green, which you may be familiar with, St. Stephen's Green, which is kind of our little central park here in the centre of Dublin, that was actually donated by Lord Ardilaun, who was a member of the Guinness family in 1880. Believe it or not. So, up to that time, it was a private park exclusively for the use of the residents of St. Stephen's Green. But Lord Ardilaun essentially rezoned it. He also totally redesigned it, re-landscaped it, and then made it available to the Dublin public. And actually, you'll see a statue of him just beside the Lewis lines there by the side of St. Stephen's Green. So, as I said, you can't go very far around the city without seeing some reminder of the black stuff, as we call it here, and the Guinness family, of course.
that's incredible that their family was so philanthropic and their reach has spanned so far.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And even back in the day, they were the first employers to introduce pension schemes, medical health schemes as well. And we still have that kind of, I suppose, patrician kind of, approach to employment here as well. So we still have the use of the medical facilities here on site. We do get an allowance beer. We don't drink on site, obviously. Those days have gone, but we are very well looked after. We get free meals every day. So that kind of tradition of looking after the employee is something that we enjoy here at the Guinness Storehouse and right throughout the site, even the brew house and some of the other processing plants as well. But yeah, no, it's nice. It really is nice. And of course, the area in which we're situated here, Peter, is Dublin 8, which is just to the southwest of the city centre. I mean, it's still inner city. It's still, 25 minutes walk from the centres, from Temple Bar, for example. And there's a lots going on here as well. So it's not just the Guinness Storehouse. Literally 5 minutes walk around the corner. We have our Open Gate Brewery, which is based in our old experimental plant. And we decided a number of years ago to open that up to the public. So because an experimental
Oh.
brewery, it's basically brewing on a much smaller scale. So obviously that gives license to the brewers to come up with styles that wouldn't necessarily be associated with the Guinness name, such as pale ales, Indian pale ales, sour beers, kind of fruity stouts, kind of raspberry stouts, etc., etc. So it kind of caters to an audience that is looking for something a little bit more kind of niche, if you like, and that's open to the public. So the bar is actually right in the old brew house. It's an old gravity brewery, so essentially means we work from the top down to the bottom. So we have our mill right at the top. We then have our mash tun a little bit below that, and then with fermentation, maturation, and then our kegging then on the bottom floor. So you feel as if you're in that working environment and you're surrounded by that brewing heritage, and yeah, fantastic. We have cultural events on in Open Gate Brewery. We have a full food menu, so it's definitely a huge addition to Dublin 8 here, which is also known as the Liberties as well, which gets its name because it was actually just outside the city walls, so it was actually exempt from any particular taxes. So the Liberties is becoming a little bit of a byword for, I suppose, a new up and coming kind of cool neighborhood, if you like, where we have
Yeah.
various other distilleries, we have other breweries, we have the National College of Art and Design, we have street markets, we've got great bars here on this side. And again, it's all within walking distance. If you don't feel like walking, you can easily get the bus. We're also linked by the tram system, which is the Lewis here as well. So there's lots going on here in the Liberties.
That sounds like a perfect place to be.
Yeah. Oh, it is absolutely. Yeah, and it's great that we've been here first, so kind of everything is kind of growing around us, So because back in the days of Arthur Guinness, Peter, you wouldn't have been able to hear yourself think in this area. There was breweries, there was distilleries, there was mills. It was a hive of activity, and this is by virtue of the
It
fact.
was an industrial quarter, and now
Very,
it's
yeah, very much
yeah.
so, very much so. There was actually a confluence of two streams that came through the area. So obviously you've got this raw material, which is easy to access. You are going to have breweries, distilleries, mills spring up around there, So it really was the brewing
Hmm.
heart and the distilling heart of Dublin. And thankfully that's coming back to this particular area. So yeah, it's great to see. It's great to be a big part of it as well.
Fair enough. Yeah. So I have another question here. So you were talking about the extra strong stout that you had other places in the world, but why do you think Guinness has become so synonymous with Ireland?
Well, I think it's that, I suppose, it's really a global reach, because it is really a world beer, and there's not too many beers you can use in that particular, with that particular title. So I think it's the whole kind of universal, kind of global, iconic side to it. A lot of people, when they see the harp, they don't necessarily think of the euro coin, or they don't think of the Irish passport. They will think of Guinness because it's very much a global beer. And I think that's one side of it. I think another side of it is innovation, that we were the first brewery in the world to dream up nitrogenated beer. And
Mm.
this totally rewrote the brewing book in terms of, how we dispense beer, how beer is actually consumed as well, because obviously when you're drinking Guinness Draft Stout, it has to be a big mouthful. You have to get to those flavors which are on the dark body of the beer, and to do that as well,
Oh,
we had to dream up the widget, for example, which is obviously that the little ping pong ball like sphere that you'll get in every can of Guinness, and that obviously creates that high pressure environment for the Guinness surge, for those bubbles to break out of solution. So I think innovation is a big one, but I think it's just essentially it's just this great success story. I don't think there's any story or figure or item, let's say, that has that global reach. To be honest with you, that comes from Ireland. So it really is the little brewery that really thought big, and that's probably the key reason why we're why
very,
we're
very
still
big.
brewing. Yeah, 263 years ago. So yeah, very much a success story, and we just love to tell that story, and a lot of different firsts as well. First nitrogenated beer, the internal railway. We came up with the Guinness Book of World Records, which is obviously also globally well known. So yeah, many different things. Everyone's got a Guinness story. Whether or not they drink Guinness or not, that's beside the point. But they will be aware of it, and you have to think, why is that? Why is that? I think it all stems back to the ambition that was held by Arthur Guinness, and that was even extended even further throughout the successive generations of Guinness family members, and obviously today our global reach is still expanding. It's still expanding right the way around the world.
That's a very good point, and I think a lot of people tend to forget that the Guinness Book of World Records does have something to do with Guinness the beer.
Yeah, it does indeed. Yeah, it was actually first produced in the mid 1950s originally as an idea by our marketing director, who one evening was involved in a kind of a typical, heated pub debate, as we all tend to find ourselves in from time to time. And he was
Yeah.
asked a question, and he gave an answer, but you know what? He didn't have any official reference books for him to actually prove that his answer was correct. And he thought to himself, you know what? This is a typical frustrating, unresolved pub question that is very common. Wouldn't it be great in an ideal world if every pub in Ireland, right throughout Britain, was to have this book of facts, this book of referenced facts where you could just delve into, and that would confirm whether you were right or wrong. So he basically held on to that idea. He got in touch with the fact finding agency in London, and yeah, then within about 3 or 4 years, they actually produced the first Guinness Book of World Records, and it proved to be so popular that when people were retrieving it, to look for their particular answer to be verified, they weren't handing it back to the barman. So Guinness immediately thought then, okay, well, if they're prepared to take it home, surely they'd be prepared to pay for it if we upscale it and make it widely available in the bookshops. And that's exactly what they did. And of course, it became the largest selling copyrighted book of all time, which is quite incredible. And in actual fact, there is a slight connection between my place of work, the Guinness Storehouse, and the Guinness Book of World Records, because we had the largest fermentation vessel in the world, which actually ended up in the Guinness Book of World Records for the first time. So it was actually the first mention of Guinness in its own Book of World
In
Records, was the largest fermentation vessel in the world, which is actually literally 1 minute around the corner from where I'm actually sitting at the moment, where it used to be. So yeah, so I think to answer your question, Peter, why is it so famous? I think it's a combination of a great tasting beer, innovation, always improving the product, and I think that kind of global reach. But again, the global reach is, there's a reason for a global reach, and that is our beers taste great. Our beers are very, very good. So I suppose that's it in a nutshell, really. And hopefully people will be able to share this quite I would say modest opinion, but it's very much a sense of pride that we have here. Hopefully, people will share that sense of pride, once they've finished the Guinness Storehouse experience at St James's Gate.
speaking of the Guinness Storehouse experience, where and how can our listeners get in contact to find out more about what you have to offer?
Well, we're on sites, obviously, GuinnessStorehouse.com. You'll be able to see us there online. It's quite easy. Basically, book in your particular time slot. You can also pre-book the experiences, as I said, such as connoisseur experience, our stouty experience, our academy experience. So again, you can kind of upgrade and kind of tailor make your experience for what you want to do for the length of time that you want to be here. I would say, if it's just going to be a regular self-guided tour, you would need a minimum of an hour to an hour and a half. But probably to get the best out of it, you'd be talking about maybe 2 hours of your day, maybe to take in one of those experiences and make sure you're relaxed with a nice pint up in the gravity bar at the top. Another thing I also wanted to mention as well, Peter, was that our parent company, Diageo, has obviously recently got involved in distilling an Irish whiskey, and this is Roe and Co., which again is 5 minutes walk right the way around the corner from the Guinness Storehouse. And the Roe and Co. distillery is actually based in the old Guinness power plant, which
Mm.
was here on site since the 1940s, in actual fact, where Guinness actually used to create or harness their own power for this for St James's Gate. So anyway, that has essentially been reimagined in a wonderful, very modern, very contemporary way in Roe and Co. And that's also open for tours, for tastings, so you get a real feel for, again, the distilling side of the liberties here.
So fair enough. It sounds like the Liberties is the place to go to experience both the Guinness as its history, have a nice pint at the top. You can try the other area where you can get
Hmm.
like the custom,
Yeah,
more
an open
niche
gate.
beers,
Yeah.
and Row and Co.
Hmm.
right around the corner again
Yeah,
in the power station. Yeah, sounds like a lovely say probably a whole day
Absolutely. Oh yeah,
experience.
you can free up your whole day, and you'll have. No, we'll show you a great time. But yeah, there's lots to see, lots to enjoy, and it really is, as I said, it's up and coming. It's quite dynamic. So if you come this year, great. If you come next year, brilliant. It's always going to
Great.
be changing,
Yeah.
and the same for the Guinness Storehouse as well. We're constantly reinventing ourselves. We are quite cognizant that we do get a lot of repeat visitors, and we want to make sure that do have a different experience every time they return to the Guinness Storehouse, and that would likewise would apply.
There's always something new to experience. Yeah.
Always something new to experience, yeah, and that obviously goes without saying in the Open Gate Brewery, because it's small scale brewing. That once we finish with one particular beer, we've already started on the next one. So
Mm.
if you come every 6 weeks, every 8 weeks, or whatever, you're going to be met with a different menu. So it's always constantly changing, always constantly dynamic. So that's the beauty of the Storehouse, the Open Gate, Row and Co, and the Liberties itself. It's constantly in flux. It's constantly changing.
And it's constantly wonderful to visit. I think that was it for us, Colm. That was absolutely perfect. Thank you so very much for joining my podcast here today. And
No
I have to
problem.
say, I look forward to visiting and revisiting the Liberties and Guinness and everything else in there.
Absolutely, my pleasure, Peter, and I'll be more than happy to welcome you when you arrive at our doorstep here at the Guinness Storehouse. So yeah, delighted to talk to you, and hopefully we'll see you very soon.